good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to those joining from Europe. My name is Alessio Pietino. I'm the business advisor at the SME Centre. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this workshop. We have an offline audience in Shanghai, but we also have some participants joining from online. Today's webinar, the topic of today's webinar is plant-based food market in China. Of course, is a very, very important topic. China is one of the biggest markets in the world for this type of food, and there already are several international brands, plant-based food brands operating in the Chinese market. The market has been growing significantly. At the same time, the use farm to fork strategy calls for a fair, healthier, and sustainable food system, and of course, shifting towards more sustainable plant-based diets and food is one of the key means to achieve of the farm to fork strategy. So today's this topic is very relevant. We have a great lineup of speakers that will share their experience and views on the topic from different angles. Specifically, so the webinar will be divided, let's say, in two main parts. The first part, there will be two presentations on the plant-based food market in China. The first one from more a market perspective, while the second more from a regulatory perspective. In the second part of the webinar, we are going to have a panel discussion with industry experts, and there will also be the occasion for the audience, both offline and online, to ask questions to the speakers directly. Before starting, I would like to spend a couple of minutes introducing our project, the SME Centre, which is a project funded by the European Commission. We've been funded since 2010, and the current phase goes on until 2025. Our mission is to support European SMEs, but also startups and entrepreneurs to enter the Chinese market, or simply to get more information about how the Chinese market work, or some regulatory updates in different sectors. We are implemented by a consortium of 6 partners and associated partners, both in Europe and China, and of course the UCCC, the European Chamber, which is the co-organizers of today's event, is one of the key players, the key partners in our consortium. So I also take this occasion to thank the UCCC for doing this together with us today. Very briefly, we provide 5 types of services. All of them, I would like to say, are totally free for European SMEs and business organizations, because we are publicly funded by the European Commission, so everything is totally free. Specifically, I'll just introduce a few of them, those that are more relevant to today's audience. One of the services we have is called Knowledge Center. Basically, we write guidelines, reports, market entry, guidelines on different sectors, both vertical sectors like food and beverage, for instance, but also horizontal issues such as HR, taxation, and so on. You can see some examples here of some reports that we have recently produced on cross-border e-commerce, but also other types of food categories, health food, but we also have dairy, wine. We have plenty of reports. We also have an advice center, which is basically a sort of help desk that European companies can use to ask any questions to us, including very technical questions. For instance, what standards they need to comply with in order to have the products allowed to be sold on the Chinese market, but labeling requirements, but also customs procedures, and so on. And we have a team of experts, both in-house and external experts, that can answer any of your questions in a confidential way, both by emails, but also one-to-one calls. And again, this is totally free. And last, we have trainings, events like we're doing today. We organize events on different topics. Also, of course, in China, but also in Europe. We are doing some offline events in Europe as well, and we're going to have a big China conference in Brussels in October this year, and more it's a 2-day conference actually, and more details are on our website and will be available soon. We also have an advocacy platform which we do in cooperation with the UCCC, And basically, we collect feedback, opinions from the European companies operating in Chinese market on different regulations. And we have recently conducted this survey on the cipher system of GACC, which has been very hot topic in the last couple of years. And all the details of this survey are available on our website. So this was it. Thank you very much again to all the participants for joining, and I'll leave the floor to the UCCC colleague for a short introduction.
Yes, sure. I would like to introduce the first keynote speaker for today, Ms. Shirley Lu, Managing Director, Asia and Chief China Representative from Proveg International. Proveg is an European nonprofit organization for plant-based diets and food innovations. In her role, Shirley launched the first ever plant-based innovation campaign with major universities and leading food manufacturers to introduce plant-based food offerings that appeal to the Chinese taste buds. She is planning to roll out this campaign to the Southeast Asia region to accelerate plant-based innovations in China. Shirley has spoken and initiated forums bringing together officials, academics, senior food executives, as well as startup entrepreneurs. So Shirley, the floor is yours now.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you, Euro Chamber and the Euro SME Centre for organizing this event. I'm Shirley Lu. I'm representative of Proveg in China and also in Asia. In Chinese, we have a saying, 抛砖引玉, throw a brick and invite a jade. China is a vast, complex market. Plant-based food is still a relatively young segment. I know that in today's audience group, we also have operators, investors, manufacturers, and also brand owners. So my following presentation will provide an overview, and I believe that following discussions will get into more insights. Let's get started. A quick introduction about myself. So prior to Proveg, I was also in the food industry, in FMCG, and also in food ingredients. In marketing, innovation, and strategy planning. I joined Proveg in 2019 and successfully registered Proveg Shanghai rep office in 2022. Before 2022, we were we took the approach of a temporary campaign authorization. So Proveg has started campaigning and also intervention since 2019. Last year, I had the privilege to be a coordinating lead author for a UNEP business brief, the changing role of business in transforming the food system, together with 3 other authors from different regions. Okay, yeah. Introduction about Proveg. Proveg is a food awareness nonprofit organization. Proveg is actually the largest European nonprofit organization in the space of plant-based eating and alternative protein innovation. Our mission is to reduce animal consumption through innovations in plant-based food and also cell-based food. Proveg has received a UN Momentum for Change Award. We are also permanent observer for UN agencies like UNFCCC and IPCC, also accredited by UNEP. Proveg is an international organization. Our office in China also now covers the Asia region. I mentioned that in 2022, we successfully registered the rep office. It's the first officially registered international NGO in China for plant-based eating and alternative protein innovation. What do we do actually now in the market? So we for startups, we organize investor pitch. Proveg also has an incubator in Berlin, but the incubator supports startups in plant-based, cell-based worldwide. It's the first and the leading animal-free food product accelerator. In China, on the ground, we also regularly organize a startup meetup. We are also considering organizing a meetup of Chinese startups together with startups in the region and also in other regions. We also have programs to help cultivate young professionals in the sustainable protein industry. Yeah, like Ting just mentioned that we have Innovation Challenge campaign. This is the 4th year that we run the campaign. Yesterday, we just had the kickoff ceremony for this year's Innovation Challenge. The campaign actually started from 2020 in China, 2021 in Southeast Asia, 2022 we expanded to Asia Pacific. Last year we had over 560 students join the Innovation Challenge. This year we have the most number of companies join the Innovation Challenge. The campaign is to connect companies with young professionals, food science students to co-create sustainable food solutions. Okay, so get into the plant-based market. I'll cover the some macro trends relevant to this segment, a highlight of the market, key players, some of the players is among the audience, and a Gen Z survey we conducted earlier this year, and some recommendations. Macro trend. Yeah, I think recently, especially earlier this year, you must have also seen many more news about the emphasis on food security. And we think that the priorities on food securities will create a favorable environment for the development of alternative protein. China imports animal protein. China has a gap of animal protein. Actually, China has a very high food independency ratio, 77%. It's very high, but now food security is a paramount priority. So despite at 77%, the central government still put further food security emphasis, further food security independence as an emphasis. Earlier last year, the 14th five-year bioeconomy plan, agri-tech plan, further emphasized about the opportunities, the focus about the alternative protein as a source and also support for food security. And earlier this year, the plant-based and the microorganisms becomes also a central government's first document in January 2023, the greater food approach from the national leaders. So overall, I think this creates a good support, a favorable macro environment for the development of alternative protein. Secondly, that 2 years ago, right, China's 30-60 policies on decarbonization, very specific targets. I think most people would link energy, industrial segments to decarbonization, but food and agriculture could also contribute to the decarbonization's goal. Right, so on the left, it shows about the big difference in the solutions of a plant-based versus the conventional solution in terms of the GHG emissions, big difference. And in China, among the food and agriculture sectors, animals, the GHG emissions from the animal agriculture accounts for almost 50%. And the overall agriculture's, if it's an overall GHG emission, then animal agriculture almost account to close to 15%, 1/5. This can be significantly reduced, through the transition to by sustainable protein. Another trend noteworthy is the growth of fermentation industry. Okay, I think the establishment of the Fungi Protein Association, led by some Asian companies and also joined by European companies, we think is a milestone for this company. Earlier this year, in the bakery, the largest bakery exhibition, one of the fermentation company by using microbial fermentation was formally launched and showcased their product in this year's May Bakery exhibition. From the investment figures that we also see that although the base is still low, but there is a significant jump in the investment in the fermentation industry. Now, investors has a very sensitive, very keen sense about the future potential. I think Cecilia will share more in this regards. So this all shows the expectation or the confidence in development in this sector. market overview. Plant-based segment, as I mentioned, that it's compared to other F&B segment, it's still relatively new. It's difficult to get hard data about the market size, considering the product definitions, the applications, and also distribution channels. We comb through the different sets of forecast. On the left is forecast by Bloomberg. I think the last 2-3 years, due to the COVID controls, overall the food service sectors had huge challenge, not only to plant-based sectors, but the overall food service sector, which is a very important entry point for the plant-based new offering. But I think with the openings of first half and also next 6-12 months, we see that players are very eager to develop, introduce new products, and also prepare their new wave of marketing push. We think that the trend of plant-based is definitely still a positive long-term the potential. So on the left is the global forecast. The white bar is a meat. Orange bar is dairy, and then plant-based dairy. The blue part is other type of plant-based product. So now established a forecasting organization that see this is long-term, a steady growth long-term. And in Asia Pacific in particular, when it's a breakdown to plant-based meat, I'll highlight the trend in meat, in dairy, and also in egg. In meat, Asia Pacific is a dark blue. So white blue is North America, gray is Europe. The dark blue, which also has the highest growth rate, is Asia Pacific. So Asia Pacific, although in this sector compared to North America or Europe, is smaller, but it's a region with the fastest growth rate. And in Asia Pacific, currently, as a snapshot, China accounts for 70%. In terms of the plant-based dairy, milk is the largest segment. China accounts for over 20% of the plant-based milk, the global market size. In the last few years, now we heard a lot of oat milk launch led by Oatly, and there are also many local brands. Oat milk or coconut milk, especially since we are in Shanghai in food service, there are several like a successful blockbuster launch with co-op with coffee chains, or with the casual dining restaurants. But when we look at the overall market, the market is more dominant by offerings in soy-based milk. Coconut milk is big. Coconut milk, there is some iconic heritage brand. The market also, I think there is also big volumes from walnut milk and also almond milk. Toward the end, the orange and green bar is oat milk. Okay, the orange bar next to the green bar. Okay. Yeah, so for the audience outside of China, just to share some pictures about the applications. In addition to using as a drink, plant-based milk in China, it's used with coffee. It's also used a lot with tea, as a carrier, as a base, as a topping, or even used as a blend as a liquid dessert. Yeah, and the traditional or more like iconic local brands, Vita Soy, is about the largest plant-based milk brand by volumes. Six Walnut. This is almost like a household brand name. So every local consumer is not very familiar with brand names. Yeshu Pai, a coconut milk. Yeah. I like to also highlight the yogurt segment. It's great that one of our speakers today is from the yogurt sector. Before COVID, in the last decade, this is a segment in the F&B industries. This is a segment with the highest growth rate. Even I think now it's still close to double-digit growth. And I also like to highlight that in some markets, yogurt is consumed in the morning. Some markets, yogurt is consumed between meal as a snacks. We have learned that Chinese really love yogurt, and the day parts, the consumption day part is around the clock. Okay, it can be consumed together with breakfast food, and also with meals as salad dressings, and also as between meals or after meals. Consumers mainly look for the health benefits, probiotics, prebiotics, and also the taste. The growth of yogurt, yes, some is from the switch from the milk, but some also from additional expanded the pie, additional volume. So for plant-based manufacturers with the capabilities, this is a segment worth looking into. How can I move to the next slide? Okay. Plant-based egg. Do you know that China has the highest per capita consumption in the world? China actually produces 40% of the eggs in the world, and the price of egg is also closely monitored because it's seen as an affordable source of protein and of nutrition. Okay, on the per capita level, now Chinese consumption is 22 kg, followed by Japanese 20 kg. So far, now we haven't seen popular brands as a replacement. However, if we look broadly, that in Asia there are several startups getting into this segment. On the left, Flow Foods from Singapore, and on the right, Innocent. It's from South Korea. Both are legume-based. I think they are green bean-based, so similar to Eat Just. In the middle is from Thailand, Plant Origin, using rice bran. So it's almost like an upcycle. Okay. Yeah. So while lacking the solutions, currently operators mainly use flaxseed powder, chickpea water, or tofu as a solution. I think this is could also be a sector that in the future we expect to see more plant-based solutions. Key players in the market. I just learned that among the audience, we also have one of the major startup brands. So now later she can also chip in some insights. I have two slides. One is about the major MNC, and the other one is some local startups. Cargill. Now recently there's also some transaction that Cargill still keep their global plant-based protein business. Their local production capabilities now have been sold to another investment firms. But in the last 2 years, Cargill has rolled out in China plant-based chicken nuggets, minced beef, and also some plant-based fish bowls. Cargill covers both the retail sectors and also food service, leverage their existing customers. They also compete on the e-commerce channel. Nestle has invested their production facilities in Tianjin. Harvest Gourmet in China has the lineup of not only ingredients, chicken nuggets, beef patties, and also prepared, pre-made food. Yeah. Their business also now covers both to B and to C. Both are the existing customer channel coverage. Beyond Meat, very high-profile brand from the US. Again, I think seems this is like the trend. They started with ingredients, minced beef, minced pork, launched the pork, catering to the Asian consumers, and then after COVID, they also launched pre-prepared food, Beyond Burgers, and also the dumplings. Local startups, yeah. So Starfield, this is the startup has the highest fund in terms of their investments that they have received. But Starfield has transitioned from a B2C brand to more B2B business. Starfield, when they first launched, they used to launch high-profile events in Shanghai, in Shenzhen, like a pop-up type of exhibitions, huge marketing spend. But in the last few years, they more transitioned to collaborations with food service brands, so more focusing on the to-B business. MetaMeat, we have one audience from MetaMeat. Okay, MetaMeat is more in the more focusing on food service business. It also has, I think, a growing export business in North America as well as in Europe. MetaMeat has very strong product development team, and it's this company also open to co-pack business. So for startups not entering into China yet, looking for solution, this could also be a contact point. Hero Proteins with R&D support, resources, talents supporting from North America. During the COVID, they have successfully transitioned from to B to C. Now, with a strong, very experienced marketing team, they have quickly transitioned to a very specific consumer segment focus. Okay, next I will talk about our proprietary survey with Chinese Gen Z. Our survey in March, April covered Gen Z college students with education of college and above, with 1,024 Gen Zers. 50% still in school, 50% already working or graduated. So what's their diet pattern? Based on our survey, that it shows that vegan, vegetarian, 1.6%, pretty small. I have seen a study in Shanghai with a 10,000 sample size. Vegan, vegetarian was 1.3%. So not much change. But flexitarian in this generation, close to 20%. I think this is a very good base. For your reference, that another study focusing on North America 2 years ago, their Gen Z is flexitarian is 24%. So when I see the results, I think although it's not as high as 24%, but I think this is higher than I expected. It's a very good base. And the definition for flexitarians is those that regularly have a plant-based meal, or they consciously reduce their meat consumption. In terms of the purchase intent among this generation, this is focusing on Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. So these 3 cities and college and above education. So about 2/3 of them have heard about plant-based meat. When we ask those who are aware about plant-based meat, 40% of them have trialed plant-based meat. So the brands launched in 2019, 2020, I think done a reasonably good job in terms of generating trials. And then we show an aided concept. So the purchase intent was asked to not only those who have those who are aware, those who have trialed, but it's asking the total sample size of 1,024 students, and over 30% of them show the purchase intent, so-called top 2 boxes. I think for a new category, a new segment, over 30%, this is also a very healthy base. Yeah. We also now ask questions about their key considerations, motivations. Okay, we gave them 8 factors to ask them to rank their top motivators. You can see that the intrinsic benefit, safe, make sure that the food you take in is safe, healthy, and nutritious. Not surprisingly, they are the top, highest, most important motivators. I would like to point out that this survey that in addition to we know Gen Zers are increasingly environment loving. I think the animal friendly, the result is a nice surprise. Gen Zers not only increasingly environment loving, but also increasingly animal loving. Animal friendly has a 12% as top factors as compared to health, safety, and also nutrition. I think this is a very nice surprise. And when we ask top 3 factors, it has over 30%. The lowercase, it's about statistics difference. Yeah. So then we do another desk search to understand pet ownership. Although now we know that pet ownership does not necessarily equate to pet loving does not necessarily equate to animal loving, but we see some kind of correlation. Do you know that 40% of the pet owners in China are 95后, are the Gen Zers? Yeah. So unlike in other countries, the pet owners could be maybe families with young children, or the elderly, they look for companions, for children, or for themselves. But in China, the 95后, the Gen Zers, are the largest segment of pet owners. I wasn't sure if the data was right, although now I've seen several media report about Gen Zers pet ownership. So I checked with our intern. I said, no, since most of the time you were in the dormitory, where could you keep a pet? And our intern said they hide them in the dorm. Okay, yeah. And then we also did further desk research. We found that there are some cafe outlets, more and more cafe outlets highlight that they are pet friendly. So you have seen that advertisement of pet cinema for like some sightseeing spots. They have pet hotels, pet cafes, etc. Okay, so I think now if this continue to be the trend for plant-based as well as cell-based brands, so you may have a new channel to promote your business. And why some consumers are not interested to buy? So we understand both the motivations for the top 2 box. We also ask about the reason why for the bottom 2 box. Taste. Okay, I think in the first slide, that motivation, the reason why taste is not ranked so high, our interpretation is that taste is a table stake. You must be good to generate a repeat purchase. But for those that reject, so yeah, I think all the brands, operators need to continuously optimize not just their product, their applications as well. Yeah, and the reason why it's not real meat, for this group of consumers, I would see for any kind of alternative, substitute, new solutions, you will have a segment of diehards. And this is a segment probably not your first priorities. And the concerns about safety and nutrition, this just shows that the brands, operators, you need to sharpen your message, explain the process, to overcome the concern about the safetyness, right? And I think to many consumers that if you explain your process, your ingredients, plant-based ingredients, usually not natural, plant-based, is also associated with positive to health or even premiumness. If you would like to see further the research finding from the studies, you're welcome to scan the QR code and download the report. The QR code can also be found on our website, www.proveg.com. I wouldn't say no recommendation. We just share some of our thoughts based on the observations of how the market has developed. First, targeting, be very specific about your target market in terms of demographics and also geographies. Yeah, as I mentioned that one of the startup brands, they cover both to be food service and in retail because their teams have the capability in the to C business. So during the last 2-3 years, when food service was closed, they were able to quickly to switch their focus, their investment, their marketing spend to develop their retail business. Yeah, application. So know your audience. In the beverage example, I said in China, yes, now China, Shanghai has become almost the capital of coffee. There's more coffee outlets in Shanghai than many other cities in the world. But tea is also a very, tea kiosks is also a very high potential segment. And the tea is, if you are not in Shanghai, not in China, the types of tea probably beyond your imagination. Yeah, so talk to local consumers, talk to the local market research experts. I said here, the most popular and the fastest growing tea is with either with milk tea or even to generation 2, 3, 4 tea. In addition to green tea, black tea, oolong tea, it usually use milk as a base, as a carrier. It's also with a topping. This is also good opportunities for plant-based solution. And marketing, yeah. We have learned that in our own study and also the studies from the market, we have seen that overemphasis on plant-based may not necessarily help generate conversion or offtakes, especially for young brand or a young segment, because some consumers may not be able, they are not convinced about the taste yet. Okay, so they may equate plant-based to their previous perception that it's tasteless. Okay, so in your naming, instead of emphasizing it's a plant-based, for example, roasted nuts, juicy, so and so. Okay, yeah. So convey and convey the message and have the product delivered taste, and also explain your ingredients. Natural ingredients or even the functional benefits of ingredients to help consumers, them to the message in terms of health and nutrition. This will help generate more motivations. Pricing, ultimately, parity price is a goal. Okay, right now, I think, because of the scale, plant-based in most cases are premium. In our study, if you download the report, in the study, we also asked about the price sensitivity. We use a price sensitivity model, ask consumer 4 questions, and come up with the most optimal price range. About 40% of the consumers, they can accept plant-based solutions with premium compared to conventional meat offering. 60% thinks that plant-based meat should be equal or cheaper than conventional meat offering. I think those who are able to price the higher, also depending on what type of plant-based solution you offer and how you communicate your brand and also your product. Even for, I use an example that even for meat offerings, we did a research through the offerings on Hema. Take pork, for example, the price difference can be 5 times, can be from 8 kwai to 40 kwai, okay, for 500 kilograms, because it's maybe different part of the pork, different way of farming, different way of growing, and also different brands. Likewise, the same logic, the same way of branding can also be transferred to plant-based offering. Supply chain. I mentioned that we have a regular startup meetup. So many startups mention about the challenge in reliable and also affordable supply chains. This is really the key to have a sustainable business, especially that many of the offerings will need either frozen or even chilled condition. Channel models. A lot of brands now are debating B2B, B2C. Make sure that your team capabilities aligned with your business strategy and also product offering. So this is just a brief highlight. Stay in touch on my email address, and I also like to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley, for this excellent presentation, very rich of insights. I'll now move to the second keynote speaker today, who is Ms. Cecilia Zhao, Impact Project Manager for New Protein at Lever China. Lever China is a Shanghai-based consultancy that focuses on early-stage investment and consultancy services for in the alternative protein industry. So Cecilia, please tell us a bit more about your work and about your takeaways from Chinese regulations and the opportunities they give to this sector.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Cecilia from Lever China. So Lever China is an impact investment and a consultancy company based in Shanghai. We are very committed in promoting plant-based food and alternative protein industry in China. So it's really great honor for me to get invited by EU SME Centre today and have a chance to discuss how regulations in China create opportunities for the plant-based food and new protein industry. So I hope my presentation today will help our audience to have a better understanding of the regulation landscapes to support food sustainability in China, and also help you gain the confidence to initiate a plant-based business and also alternative protein business in China, since this is very faster growing and tremendous opportunity. And as many of you may have known that China in many ways is a top-down governed society system. So as we observed, that this also applies to the reformation of food system and agriculture system in this country. So before we dig into the regulation maps, let's start with a few very most prominent characters of the meat consumers market we observe in China nowadays. So firstly, China has become the largest meat consumer market in the world. In 2021, China consumed 27% of the world's total meat consumption, which is twice the total consumption of the United States. And per capita consumption of China was only half of the US, but due to the faster growth of China consumers' income levels and also the urbanization of the country, China is still the most rapidly rising and promising market for meat and animal-based protein in the world, especially for high-end meat products. And coming to the next page, we can see from the latest market survey conducted by McKinsey & Company that comparing with the situation in Germany, UK, US, and Netherlands, pork is most mainstream meat category consumed in China, with the total consumption reached to 57 million tons in 2021, and that counted 60% for the whole world's total pork consumption in that year. Beef and seafood has a lot of growth space. Especially for beef, for our audiences who live in China, especially in first and tier cities, it's very obvious that we can see high quality beef and steak is becoming a tremendous consuming trend in both restaurants and the retail outlets. And another very prominent point for us to pay attention is China consumed the least amount of alternative protein products compared with the peer countries. We think the situation is caused by a variety of reasons, but definitely not including the reason that Chinese consumers not lovers of plant-based products. Actually, on the contrary, we think Chinese meat market has becoming more diverging than ever. A survey conducted in 2022 shows that 47% Chinese consumers claim themselves as vegetarians on different levels, as well as conscious meat consumers. Here, by conscious meat consumers, we mean consumers who still eat meat, but consciously reduce their meat consumption. And in China, this group is mainly made up of female and baby boomer generation, which is the generation born in and after 1960s. And through analyzing the reasons that Chinese conscious consumers don't eat or started to reduce their meat consumption, we believe this trend will continue to expand. Most Chinese people are very pragmatic consumers, which can be reflected in the reason that affected their food preferences. According to this survey, nearly half of the Chinese conscious meat consumers have decided to reduce or no longer eat meat due to the consideration of health. And we think the situation is getting intensified along with regulations, advocacy, and the pandemic, the recent years pandemic of animal-oriented diseases. And compared with Europe, we think Chinese consumers' awareness of the relationship between meat consumption and environmental sustainability still needs to be improved. However, the awareness of this is being reinforced firstly in many regulations in recent years by Chinese government, and we will go for more details about this in my presentation later. So overall, there are three most factors we think that drive the regulation progress in China for the plant-based food and a wider range of alternative protein. They are health, sustainability, food technology, and security. So now let's dig into the regulation in these three sections respectively to better understand how the Chinese government lays the opportunities in the related industry. Firstly is health. As awareness of health risks associated with some certain food types get growth in China, also alongside with average income growth, more and more Chinese consumers are starting to shift their consumption towards safer, healthier, and greener alternatives. Many people realize that meat and animal products are not only resources to meet their high quality protein and nutrition demands. So the call outs for more diversified protein and alternative products with lower fats, calories, and also allergy risks is rolling. So the long-term policy guidance plays a very important role in forming this situation. Since 2016, China's health ministry has issued two versions of health dietary guidelines, which clearly state the relatedness between the excessive meat consumption and the very prominent health issues that happen nationwide, such as obesity, high blood pressures, and many kind of angiocardiopathy diseases. In the 2016 version, of the National Dietary Guideline, China's health ministry recommend to cut off 50% average meat consumption per person in order to make Chinese consumers eat healthier. In the latest 2022 version, the health ministry even guides more explicitly about everyone should consuming ample amounts of plant-based food, including vegetable, fruits, whole grains, and soybeans in their daily diet. And next, the factor that drives many regulation progress in China for the plant-based food and the alternative protein is sustainability. So in September 2020, President Xi Jinping announced that China will aim to have the carbon dioxide emission peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. And also in China's national determined contributions to the Paris Agreement from 2021, agriculture is identified as a key sector within which to achieve greenhouse gas emission reduction and also efficiency improvement. So under this sector, the very first important policy to help with achieving this climate goals is the 14th Five-Year National Agriculture Green Development Plan. So this plan identifies resource protection, pollution control, restoration of agriculture ecology, and development of low carbon agriculture industrial chain as 4 key goals to be achieved between the years 2021 and 2025. The plan also reflects that the trend of supporting low carbon production and environmental production in Chinese agriculture system and food system is irresistible. So as a result, the traditional livestock and poultry industry we think will face more and more transitional risk in the recent years. and more investment, technology supports, and the resources will start to lean to more sustainable food production, including plant-based food and alternative protein. So this plan plays a very important role to start identifying plant-based food and alternative protein as low-carbon agriculture products that have key strategic effects for the nations to achieve the climate goals. And this one also got mentioned by Shirley earlier in March 2022 during the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference meeting. President Xi Jinping mentioned the role of alternative protein in ensuring national food security and sustainability through the proposal of the concept of greater food approach. Notably, President Xi pointing out the importance of obtaining calories and the protein not just from animal, but also from plants and microorganisms. For many observers, this mention of plant-based protein and other alternative protein has been seen as a very clear signal for the country's new policy to support the relevant industry. And on the demand side, the consumption of sustainable and low-carbon food, including plant-based diet, has gained traction in China's regulation section over the last few years. In 2022, the 7 central ministry-level agencies published the implementation plan on promoting green consumption. So in this plan, the government identifies the food sector as a key area for transition towards sustainable consumption and suggests the shifting consumer preferences toward green and healthy food. So all this recent policy development demonstrate the Chinese government's support for consumption of green and low carbon food. Given that plant-based and other alternative proteins are often labeled as green and low carbon products, these products could face a more friendly market environment in China and even will receive more supportive measures from the Chinese government. The last factor, but not the least, is about food technology and security. So transforming China's food system is imperative. Currently, China accounts for 60% global soy imports, and most of this imported soys are used for animal feedings and therefore producing meat products for the nation. Making development in plant-based food and the new protein industry is very crucial for improving food and nutrition security by reducing China's dependence on imports for animal feeds. So under this background, to increase investment in agricultural research and development and to produce more with less is a central goal in Chinese government's supply side structural reforms. The 14th Five-Year National Agriculture Technology Development Plan published by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs in January 2022 mentions that cell-based meat, synthetic egg, dairy, and oil, and functional recombinant protein cultivation as types of cutting edge and across integrity technology for the production of future food. And only after a few months, the 14th Five-Year Plan for the Bioeconomy was published by the National Development and Reform Commission. And this plan included a call to develop synthetic biology technology to explore the research and development of artificial protein and other new food products to reduce the pressure on environmental resources brought by the traditional farming industry. And another very important milestones we think is the Chinese government's collaboration with the US FDA. So following the US FDA's pre-market approval for a couple of cultured meat products, in December 2022, regulatory experts from the US FDA and China National Center for Food Safety Risk Assessment discussed the regulatory approval process and the prospects for cultivated meat in the major markets of the two countries. So in a meeting, the director of China CFSA noted that China will focus more on the food safety assessment on cell cultivated meat in 2023. And China's 2023 plans include establishing experts working groups to ensure that innovation, industry development, and food safety move forward together in this section. So all this inclusion of alternative proteins in multiple government plans can be seen as major milestones for alternative protein industry as well as plant-based in China. It not only shows that the industry has been formally recognized by the Chinese government, but more importantly, may foreshadow a series of supportive policies being implemented to secure China's position as a global leader in this emerging industry. And so now let's take a look at some important standards that have been issued by either the government departments or the industry institutions. Although it's still in its very nascent stages, the plant-based meat industry in China has undergone a significant development in recent years. So to lead the booming industry to a more standardized track of development, CIFST, which is Chinese Institute of Food Science and Technology, issued the first national standard for plant-based meat products in 2021. So this standards contains definition, technical specifications, and guidelines to govern the labeling, packaging, transportation, and storage of plant-based meat alternative products in China. I think in these standards, there are 2 points very valuable for us to pay attention. And because I think they reflect the main concerns the market has to the plant-based meat products and how these regulations try to resolve these problems. The first one is about additives. According to the industry, according to this industry standard laid out by the CIFST, plant-based meat products should not contain any animal derived ingredients, including dairy and eggs, and are encouraged to have a high protein, low fat, and low sodium content. While food additives can be used by plant-based meat products, the guideline says that non-plant-based ingredients should not make up more than 10% of the total mass of the item. And the second one is about labeling. Regarding the labeling, the standard dictates that the product's plant-based attributes should be clearly reflected using either descriptive words or indications that the product is meant to stimulate its animal-based counterpart. For example, the labeling rules for plant-based beef the plant-based alternative for beef can be labeled as plant-based beef or use more specific descriptors for the format, such as plant-based beef steak or plant-based beef hamburger. So the overall, the move to establish the first voluntary industry standard for plant-based meat alternative makes a very significant step forward in the mainstreaming and the growth of the industry in China, and signals the government's increasing attention to alternative sources of protein to bolster its food resilience and security in the wake of the pandemic. In terms of the plant-based drinks and the dairy, there are 2 standards worthy of our attention for the companies in the related sector. The first one is issued by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs to govern plant-based protein beverages. And it is a mandatory standard applicable to all the plant-based drink products sold in the China market. The standard specifies the terms and definitions, classification requirements, inspection rules, labeling, packaging, transportation, and storage of plant-based protein beverages. And the second standard is issued by an industry organization called China Health Inspection Institution to govern plant-based yogurt specifically. But this one is a voluntary standard for a company to benchmark a product with their peer products on the market. This standard stimulates the terms and identification, raw material requirements, sensory requirements, physical and chemical indicators, pollutant limits, and many other metrics for plant-based yogurt. And all in all, we believe with the regulatory supports accompanied by the public and private investment in scaling alternative protein and more sustainable plant-based production in China, the industry has the potential to follow a similar path that the renewable energy industry already took in China, which is government support and economies of scale led to a rapid drop in cost. And here is a very brief introduction about Lever China. Lever China is dedicated to work along the way to build a more sustainable protein system in China. And the two most premier ways for us to work for this goals is one, we do venture investment to support our startup and early stage companies in China. And the two, we work with a lot of big corporates to impact their business applications of plant-based food and alternative protein products. In terms of venture investment, we've invested in incubated 13 alternative protein companies in Hong Kong and mainland areas of China. And in terms of corporate impact projects, we've collaborated with tens of big corporations of chain restaurant, hotels, catering suppliers, and retailers to help them optimize their businesses about of both regular plant-based ingredients and also innovative alternative protein products. And our mission is to promote the advancement of the new protein industry and contribute to build a more sustainable food system. And so this is our website and WeChat account, and as well as my personal information. We welcome all kinds of institutions and companies to consult more about plant-based food and alternative protein industry in China. Thank you, and looking forward to more communication in the future.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. And please stay there for a second, because I was going to propose that maybe before starting the panel, we can take 5 minutes to answer a few questions that we have received in the Q&A chat. And there was one for Cecilia, I suppose. I mean, Cecilia, you have already mentioned this when talking about the standards for different plant-based products, but there is one question. I will read it out. It says, I would like to know if there are limits and rules on the ingredients, vitamins, stabilizers for plant-based items in China. You mentioned this already briefly, but I think a very interesting aspect of this question is where companies can find these standards. Indeed, this is a very frequent question that we receive. Where can they learn about these technical specifications? What are your suggestions?
Okay, let me take time to look at the question. Can you show the question again?
It's the second question.
So the online question is, I would like to know if there are limits and rules on the ingredients, vitamins, stabilizer for the plant-based item in China, and if yes, where we could search those.
Yeah, so for this question, I believe there's some limitations and the rules for what kind of ingredients and other things can be used in the plant-based products sold in China market. I think I don't know the exact like very concrete rules and the limits about for those ingredients, but I can suggest the people who raised this question can go to the first plant-based meat standard I just introduced to start to search from that standard to see whether they have some very concrete limits and rules about this ingredients.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Cecilia. Thank you. And indeed, this is, as I mentioned, this is one of the most frequent questions that we receive. Where can European companies access Chinese standards, the tax, and so on? And this is also an area where the SME Centre can help eventually. Maybe I'm going very quickly through a couple of other questions. I think these are directed to Shirley. So the first one is, what will be the main driver of plant-based growth in the food sector? The plant-based flexitarian consumers, F&B companies, or regulatory measures?
Thank you for the question. The main driver for plant-based food growth, I think both demand and supply, right? Yeah. So on the consumer side, we just mentioned that because of the conversions of some trends, consumers are more health conscious, and they are more environment conscious. So there's more and more consumers that they chose to reduce their meat consumptions. Now, if you can choose, if you are able to have the whole food plant-based solutions, most of the time, that's great. And for those that still have meat cravings, then these plant-based substitute provide solutions. And on the supply side, companies with innovations that cater to local their preference in applications, and if they also have the effective motivating marketing messages, can help also help to like tap into the hidden needs. So I think both from the consumer needs part and also from the company's innovations, both can help drive the trend. Regulations with clearer standards and also more specific support for more startup companies getting into this segment, yeah, that will also help support the growth.
Very good, Shirley. And maybe very quickly through another question, which I think is very interesting. So also in your presentation, why is the focus so much on plant-based meat and dairy rather than, many other categories out there that are even less processed, more natural, cheaper, and readily accessible?
Yeah, I saw this question on the screen. That's why just now I mentioned that. Good question. Like I just said that for consumers who can afford whole food plant-based, have the resources and also the time to prepare, that's a great. That would be the best. We need to know that the consumer, the targets for these plant-based alternatives, plant-based meat, is for those that who are interested to have a more plant-rich, plant-forward diets, but they still have the craving, and therefore these plant-based meat substitutes provide a solution for them to both cut down the meat consumption and also increase their plant-based food intake.
Very good. Thank you. I think we can stop here with the questions. If there will be time after the panel, we can go through other questions. So maybe I will now begin the panel. Thank you again, the two speakers, for your excellent presentations. I would like to welcome the moderator of this panel session, Ms. Ran Xin, who is the Government Affairs Desk Manager at the European Chamber, and also three panelists, very renowned experts in the field. Dr. Stefan Schmal, forgive me if my pronunciation is not very correct, who is the CEO of Noix AG. Then we have Miss Chloe Lin, who is the Director of Sustainability Greater China at Oatly, one of the major players, and again Miss Shirley Lu from Proveg International. Thank you, and we look forward to hearing your discussions. Jan, the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alonso. Hi, everyone. This is Ran from European Chamber Beijing office. I've seen you've all been well seated. Please tell me if it's okay to start our panel discussion today.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ran.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's a shame that I can't be in Shanghai with you all and meet in person. But it's very great to hear all your sharings and start our discussion right in front of audience. So my first question is actually going to Shirley. So again, thank you very much for having this sharing with us. It's very impressive report on the consumers for the new generations. And it's a very promising market when we see this data said that China takes up to over 70% the market share in APAC area. But when it comes to day-to-day operation, what are the common challenges startups or SMEs of plant-based food face in China?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the question. Is the mic working? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think the challenges that we have heard includes a few areas. Number one is supply chain. Now, for startups, to find a reliable and also affordable supply chain, we said that's the key to their competitiveness and to have a sustainable business. So number one is supply chain. Now, most of startups start from the co-packing mode. So make sure that you can find compatible and also cost-effective partner. And number two is I think after the a lot of brands are really working very hard to drive their revenue. Okay. So because the disruption of during the COVID time, so a lot of brands now is reinvest to build their brands and also educate consumers to the second wave of marketing to educate consumers more about the segment. Yeah, so supply chain and revenue generation. And then together with revenue generation is customer acquisition. Yeah, we heard that these are the key challenges. Since many of them are in startup mode, talents, but this is across for all the business and different size of companies. Attract talents into these sectors has also been a challenge for startup. Yeah, so supply chain, revenue generation, customer acquisition, and build a capable, committed team. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So based on these challenges, how does a company like you work with SMEs to crack the Chinese market?
Great follow-up question. So I mentioned that we have sorry, on startup challenge, I think linked to revenue, I should also mention about fundraising. Okay, yeah, because of the overall, the market environment. So for a new segment like alternative protein, it's probably even more challenging. Okay, one of our program, New Food Invest, we help startup raising fund by organizing an online investor pitch. This is once a year, and it covers startups in North America, startup in Asia Pac, and also startup in Europe. So we welcome the early startups to sign in, to register for this program. This connect startup with investors worldwide interested in alternative protein sector. Our another program, the incubator, this is also more focusing on more early startup. This has 2 cohort every year. The deadline is January and July. So the second half cohort has already started. This incubator, we have incubated over 100 startups globally in alternative protein, including both plant-based and also cell-based, and have helped them raise over 250 million euro. And including startups from 25 different countries, including a startup from China, from Thailand, Singapore, India, these countries are in Asia. So for early startups, please check about this program. Another support that we provide with is if you are on the ground in China already, we have a regular startup meetup. In this event, usually we keep it within 5 companies, and we invite each companies to bring one their best practice, one area, one practice, one example they did well, and also bring one one challenge they face. They want to use collective wisdoms to find a better solution. And in this platforms, we also share about our research and about observations. Like information we heard from retailers and food service operators we collaborate with. So these 3 programs, I think in short, get in touch. The investor pitch and Proveg incubator, and also the in-market startup meetup programs. Yeah, we think that together now we can. It's a big challenge to attack this market, to grow, but I think together we can make more effective and bigger move.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this information. I think for startups who wanted to start thinking about being a player in the field and how to strategize themselves, I think it would be helpful to have a platform to talk about all the lessons learned and the trends of the industry. And thank you very much. So we're also very glad to have some of our key players in our meeting today, and Dr. Stefan Schumer from Noix AG and Chloe Ling from Oatly. And I would be really glad to hear about your voices to maybe as a key player. So what's your experience when entering the Chinese plant-based market? This question is to both of you, so you might take turn to answer the question. Yeah.
Thank you. This is a good question. And being an SME ourselves, I can imagine what people want to hear and what they want to learn today. So first thing, this is not what they want to learn. My name is Stefan Schmale, this is German, and the company name is Noix, this is French. So just for that.
Thank you for question.
We entered the market in 2020, and we are offering plant-based alt protein snacks in between meals, especially at the moment, yogurts, coconut-based, almond-based. And just to get an impression, we have about 70% of the market share at the moment in mainland China, which sounds good. We won all the awards. We are an example company when it comes to sustainability. And I know all the statistics and the macroeconomics, we know that, and all the surveys. But like very often, the challenge lies in the detail. And I want to talk a little bit about the details so that someone who's not yet in the market can understand what the differences between the European and the Chinese market are. The first are the consumers. In Europe, we are used that consumers know about vegan, old protein, plant-based. In China, this is not the case. The typical consumer does not know. So if you try to sell your product as plant-based, vegan, or old protein, you have to do a lot of teaching, which is very, very intense and expensive. So in Germany, you just put a product into the shelf, naming it vegan, and everybody knows and buys. This is not the case in China. Then we have, as old protein, when we heard that earlier, we have 4 reasons why you should buy: health, animal welfare, sustainability, and food security. Health in China, for the normal consumer, typically boils down to calories and sugar. These are the most important selling arguments. They look at the calories, especially women, and they look at whether sugar is inside or not. That's the point. And animal health, it is true for the young that they care more about that, animal welfare. But for the typical Chinese, if it's not a dog or a cat, it doesn't care very much. So this is not a selling argument. We are not using that at all. Food security, yes, this is important for China, but that's a government issue. The typical Chinese consumer does not care. And sustainability, many people don't know. Another aspect is Chinese consumers are not very brand loyal, especially, I mean, if you're not a big brand like Oatly, Beyond Meat, Nestle, it's very difficult. Chinese consumers try something new. They like to buy new things. So they try your product and then they may not buy for 3 or 4 months. So you have to reach a lot of people if you want to generate the revenue. Also, Chinese people in general are discount hunters. So they like to buy in promotions. This is very important. When you set your price, you must be able to give promotions of 30, 40%. People don't buy. So it is not so easy to reach the Chinese consumer. And you have to differentiate between the consumer in first-tier cities. Most of the surveys, by the way, are for younger people in first-tier cities. It's a completely different situation in second, third, fourth-tier cities. People are poorer, less educated. Another thing is distribution. In Europe, many retailers jumped on the topic of sustainability. This is not the case in China yet. It starts with some state-owned, government-owned companies, but typically they don't care very much. They are not promoting this like European companies. So you're a little bit left alone with the story. They just put you on the shelf. And if you have no story to tell, it's very difficult to get off the shelf. Also, one may not underestimate the margins that Chinese retailers require. So it is not easy to get on the shelf, and it is quite expensive. So margins for retailers are high. So you really have to do your math before you go there. Another thing is marketing. Many Europeans think marketing in China is cheap. It's the opposite. It's extremely expensive. And the marketing noise in China is very, very high. And you have to invest a lot of money to reach people. And you have to do that continuously, especially if it's online. You have to feed the platforms all the time. It is good to be on platforms. It's good to sell online, but select your platform carefully. There are many more platforms in China than in Europe, and they all have different audiences. Some like to buy cheap, some like to buy quality, and they all have different interests and what they want to see: more information, more entertainment. And if you want, as an SME, if you want to cover that all, it is very, very expensive. The platform costs, the advertising costs, you have to make video that costs. So for an SME, I can only say concentrate your efforts. Make good analysis in the beginning, then concentrate on region, concentrate on customers, concentrate on platforms, and try to be most effective in that. And one remark also regarding regulations. For old protein products, there are not so many regulations actually at the moment. We very often have the problem that we are not able to describe our products. The restrictions for labeling are much higher, in many instances, are much higher than in Europe. So there are many things which you may not say, and there are also things that you must say. Otherwise, you are in trouble. And as an SME in Europe with a little experience in China, this is a high risk. So you better do your research. It is not as simple as taking a European product and just selling it in China. You must take a good look, a clear look at what you may say and what you may not say. And one remark, which is not directly to that topic. Yes, Chinese people switch more to plant-based. But plant-based is not necessarily old protein. I mean, the Chinese kitchen is very, very rich. And in Europe, we are used that a typical meal consists of meat as a main dish and vegetables and potatoes maybe as a side dish. This is not the case in China. They have so many alternatives also with vegetables or fruits being the main dish. So they must not necessarily switch to old protein. They have many, many alternatives that we must always keep in mind.
Yeah, thank you. Very valuable lessons and also sincere suggestions when it comes to SMEs, entrepreneurs who want to or willing to start this business. I think it's a very great suggestions. Thank you very much. And for Chloe?
Hi, hello. I'm Chloe, the Sustainability Director of Oatly Asia. Oatly is the earliest and the largest oat drink company. And over 25 years, we focus on the developing the expertise around oats. A power crop with inherent attributes suited for human health and sustainability. Our product portfolio include ice cream, milk, yogurt, cooking cream, on-the-go drinks, etc. I think the Oatly story in China is how a global brand, how the commercial successful in a localized way. Oatly actually is not a new brand. Backward to early 1990s, scientists explore the mechanism behind the lactose intolerance and its effects on people. They set out to find a way to find nutritious and sustainable dairy alternative to make it easy for people to eat better without recklessly taxing the planet's resources. So they find the solution in the crop base of oat. And they also develop a way to use the natural enzymes to break down the fiber-rich oat into liquid food. I think during the decades efforts, the consumers in Europe and North America gradually accept the oat-based drinks, and the habit of consuming plant-based food is irreversible. So I think the sales volume in the mature market is quite stable. But in China, we really find it's difficult from the beginning. 5 years ago, Oatly landed in China. And since our shareholder is China Resources with extensive retail franchising network, and for the mature market, we have very strong performance in the retail channels. So we found we should start from the retailing channel, but immediately we find it's very difficult because consumers don't know what is oat milk, how they can use oat milk at home. So the rotation is not stable, but we immediately switch our strategy. We found through some market survey, we noticed we should to build the scenario, and we should educate consumers. We should nurture our first batch of consumers. So we establish our first strategy that is 3 1s: one city, one product, one market, which is one city is Shanghai, one product is burst edition, 1 liter. One market is boutique coffee channel. I think we take 6 months to penetrate the boutique coffee channel in Shanghai. And in China, boutique coffee channel is the opinion leader of the whole coffee industry. And the consumers visiting the boutique coffee shops usually can accept higher price. In that time, 1 liter barista edition is 48 RMB per liter. It's much higher than regular dairy products. So we can understand why China consumers feel difficult to accept it. But in boutique coffee channel, 1 liter barista edition can make 4 cups of coffee. 1 cup equals to 35 or 40 yuan, usually. So the value chain is workable during this model. So I think after 6 months efforts, we just covered more than 60% of market share in the boutique coffee channel. And then we extend our business case to the coffee chains like the Starbucks. At first, we conquered the Starbucks in Singapore, in Hong Kong, and then we extend to Starbucks China. I think our milestone is our successful launch of a good campaign with Starbucks in 2020, the Earth Day. I think more than 60 coffee shops held the good plant-based menu with Oatly coffee latte and Beyond Meat, the set. And which was mentioning is that we even have the accessibility education with Starbucks. Each coffee latte use Oatly oat milk can have a decrease of 64% carbon emission compared with the dairy dairy latte. So I think the rotation is quite high, and we win the reputation in the accessibility circle. The business case, I think, how the meanings of commercial and the social aspects. After the Starbucks case, we noticed tea channel is also a very big channel in the food service, 10 times size of coffee channels. So we have the collaboration with many famous brands in the bubble teas, just like the 益禾堂、树益烧仙草、Pei Tea, etc. I think that's the best way with the collaboration of food service brands. We educate the customers and we build the scenarios and we teach the consumers how to use the oat milk. So in the meanwhile, we launched the business in the e-commerce and the offline retailing. Till now, we are still the #1 of the oat milk category in the Timor. I think we are still in the process of to the 2C consumers. I think we just started the business, the C business from the last year. During the COVID, I think it's just a surprise in the commercial practices, because during the COVID, we donate many oat milk to the household of Shanghai, and we did many group buying to the Shanghai families. So I think for this street drink, the first batch of consumers can gradually accept buying the oat milk as the street drinks. So I think there is still a long way to go. And I noticed there is a tea barista products in the deck of Shirley Lu's. I want to mention the barista is just imported SKUs from the Europe. They got commercial success in China because we have the right channel strategy, but we still need to develop more products localized according to the China actual status. Like the Tea Master is never developed in Europe or NA, but this product is a very good match based on the tea base of our customers. So it's very customer driven and very localized products. And besides our NPD in the food service, we have developed many products for the retailing channel, like we with the cooperation of Xiang Piao Piao, which is the most successful brand in the tea industry. So we launched the 100% plant-based milk tea for the street drinks for consumers. So we're looking forward to the progress of those products. So what I can give to the audiences for this workshops is, I think from the channel strategy and the product strategy, each brand can have the chances to seize it. There's still a lot of niche market to be gapped by startups. But I think the reason for Oatly success, there are 3 keys. One is the supply chain. I think Oatly is the only international brand have its own supply chain. They have 2 factories. One is in Singapore, the other is in Manshan. So we can continually develop different products. We can have very flexible supply chain service to our key accounts. In food service, it's very important to them. The second is we control the I think most strategic ingredients in the oat milk industry, such like the raw oats and some other strategic ingredients. So we can control the upstream of this industry. And the third, I think Oatly is the first brand imported to China. So the flavor equals to the Oatly's flavor equals to oat milk. So in the industry, from many reporters in the finance, they say how to evaluate one new company's performance in NPD of oat milk. That is how much they can follow the Oatly's flavor or sensory standard. So I think we are not afraid of many competitors entering the oat milk industry because it's still a very small section. We welcome more and more startups and scientists and investors to pay attention to this section. It's good, but I think Oatly, as the leading company, as the benchmark of the sensory, we can still leading the industry. In the 2021 and this year, we published 2 versions of China Oat Milk Industry White Book with the help of many government officials, scientists, professors from university. We define the definition, the nutrition, the accessibility evaluation of oat milk. I think that's the way we can lead the industry, and we help this industry to grow more health. Yeah, I think that is all my suggestion. Thank you.
May I add something to that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I will try to put that into perspective, because I said earlier, not everybody is an Nestlé or an Oatly. So just for the SMEs here, yes, Oatly did a good job co-branding with, for example, Starbucks, and they were all over the country. But as an SME, you can forget about that. You have no chance to get a co-branding with someone like that. So you need other ways to get attention. What is key in China is to get the attention of enough consumers. And attention span is a few seconds when they slip over their smartphone. So if you don't have the power, the means, and the relationships of someone like Oatly and want to do that, you must have another strategy. And if you don't want to spend so much money or cannot spend so much money for marketing, you must use social media. You must make others talk about you. You must create stories and visuals. Chinese people like to share visuals. They go somewhere, take photos and share them in the groups. They're all in many WeChat groups and other groups. And this is the way, if you find KOLs, key opinion leaders, KOCs, key opinion consumers, or others who are in big groups, and they share photos of your product. So create stories, make pop-up stores at good locations where people go just to shoot the photo. This is how you can multiply your efforts. You will not, I promise, if you are a small SME and don't have the money and don't have the brand, which is very important, you must have the brand, otherwise they don't accept you. You will not be able to have some co-branding. But
can I respond to that?
Yeah.
I think I agree with the comment on create stories that will go viral, definitely. But in terms of that SMEs then would be shut out for the co-branding opportunities. Not exactly, because one of the startup brands I just mentioned, they started with a to C business and then recently switched to 2B. The reason why they can quickly build their brand as a startup, they did generated a lot of co-brands opportunities. I think it all depends on your consumer insights. You can come up with great insights, good stories. There are also brands that open to co-brand with the startups, not only in plant-based sectors. You can also find examples in other sectors as well. So I think having unique, impactful insight, there are opportunities. I would also like to respond to another point that you just mentioned. Chinese consumers' diet. Yes, Chinese consumers are blessed with a lot more varieties of plant-based ingredients. So Chinese diets are more balanced. I think however, that the current intake, even compared to the national dietary guideline, Chinese consumption on meat, actual consumption, is higher than the national dietary guideline. So the government also encourage consumers to take more vegetables and fruits. Okay, the story that Chinese consume most meat than any other countries, and even twice in the US, that approach doesn't work. Put things into perspective that Chinese population is 4 times the size of the US. So on a per capita basis, now consumption is much lower. So the approach that Chinese consumes too much meat, we should consume less, that approach doesn't work. But in terms of in the current repertoire, if we compare to the dietary guidelines, I think there is a consumer survey a few years ago run by Baidu. In fact, many urban citizens, dwellers, there's also a trend. Consumers, they are conscious to reduce their meat consumption. Yeah, but overall, I think for brands, for plant-based alternative brands, focusing on taste, health, and nutrition, we see now these will more effectively drive purchase. Yeah, I think especially for a young segment, overly emphasized plant-based in a more mature market. This is a label to help guide consumers this segment versus the other segment that may help. But in this market that we have seen research and also examples from the brands come back to basic. Food is about taste, focusing on the intrinsic benefits, and also is the price value for money are the key basic drivers.
But as you said, true very much for meat. Meat is very special, and meat is not so easy to replace.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want meat, and then the plant-based meat must come as close as possible. I see that in our category, it's different. People have more things to choose, and there are more, and not all here are meat or dairy. And just to say that meat and dairy are so mentioned so often because they are the biggest market. They're very huge markets. All the other markets, plant-based, alt protein, are relatively small.
I think what we've all agreeing on is that the market is still have a really specific group of people or consumers, and you have to find your niche in order to identify your targeted group of populations so that your product will make sense. I think all of you have touched on the point that like the strategy, one city, one product, one market strategy from Oatly is actually echoes on Stefan's opinion on it's not just about localization to bring a product from Europe to China without knowing your group of people. So I think all in all, if any one with the wishes to have their products in China's market, a lot of research or need to be done in order how to have your group of people support your products, sell it in any channels that you would like to apply for. So yeah, that's my takeaways today. And I think we still got just a little bit time for questions from the audience. If we do we have any questions from the audience? Tingyi, if it's
One. Oh, thank you. My question is, now we have a lot of healthy food or veggie food products on the market, and then if we check the ingredients are not all healthy. I didn't check about oat, but I check another oat milk, and it has some kind of like the ingredient that is kind of chemical processed, which is not healthy for our health. And then my question is, how can we, for example, influence or kind of improve the market? Like the main ingredients are healthy, but then
example like sweeteners like tiramisu, which is already banned from the UN Health Organization side, but we still have some healthy food using this kind of chemicalized sweeteners. So yeah, thank you.
I think Oatly has relative clean labels, so I think it's more about the question how we standardize the market. So what is healthy food? And what is the specific standard to establish what is healthy oat milk? We have established a group standard with Shanghai 食品协会, but I don't know the English name, and with the 中国营养学会, we have two group standards, and we specify the content of beta, gluten, and the protein. But I think for more specific regulation, we still have a long way to go. Do you have any suggestions for the regulation thing?
Yeah. But I have a more pragmatic view on that. So our products are clean label without any chemicals. But first, somebody has to care. And second, typically this makes products more expensive. If you do it without chemicals and without a lot of processing, it's more expensive. That's how it is. Cannot be cheaper. And if the consumer does not care, they will always sell and buy the cheaper products with chemicals. Products with chemicals are cheaper. You can add, instead of natural fruits, you can add chemical flavors. You can do a lot of things. Enzymes to improve the product. That's the cheapest way. And as long as the consumer doesn't care, as long as the consumer doesn't know, why should it change? And I don't think you can do that by regulation. You can do that, make it more transparent. You can teach people, or you can forbid the other products. But this, I don't know any market where this works. So as long as the consumers don't care, it will not happen.
Yeah, or it's just depending on the consumer's choice, because different brands have different market position for their products. If they think their consumers most pursue the value of health or sustainability, maybe they will adjust their ingredients in a different way. But I think if some brands think the price or the taste will be the most factors influence their consumers, they will find different way. But I think we leave this topic to the market. The different consumers with different preference will have their options.
Consumers' preferences are first taste, second mouthfeel, and third price. And sustainability is somewhere fourth or fifth. So
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we can have another one from the audience. I think this is also our last question.
Hello,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alana from Repo Vegan Space and also Health Pro Health Management Company. So we have a space located very near to Hongqiao International Airport. And we aim to actually promote, educate, invite people who really aim to have like vegan-based, plant-based diet. And we do a lot education, salon, and also want to help people to know how can eat plant-based products healthily, nutritiously. So I'm very happy to get this opportunity to join this afternoon salon. Of course, I have a lot of questions, but regarding the time, I think maybe in the future, we can have another session. If possible, we can discuss more. I hear quite a lot like products, producer, dealer, and maybe experts here. If you like, I would invite you come over and we can have more discussion. We are new in this industry, but I think beyond health
and environmental sustainable, these topics, plant-based and vegan-based kind of products is also a very important, vital basement to develop and grow people's spiritual level and the mindset, and also the attitude towards life. So this is not only regarding to diet and health. There's much more for that to add on. I hope we can have more opportunity, can discuss with you guys here. Thank you.
Glad to know.
Just to inform the Europeans, there are surprisingly, if you look at the statistics, there are surprisingly many vegans in China. The difference to Europe is vegans in Europe are vegans for ideological reasons. Is it animal health, for sustainability? This is the reason to become vegan. Yeah. In China, it is very often religious. And this is a big difference which one has to know when addressing the vegans, the vegan community.
That's right and not right. That's right because it is fact. It's not right maybe because us as human beings, we don't exactly have that life science more regarding to what's the best, how our body and heart and soul. So we need to take the responsibility to share more, to encourage, and kind of let people know why plant-based, why vegan, and why us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for sharing. And I really appreciate this open discussion. And I believe that discussion or this conversation will not end. Today's meeting will just be a start. We're talking about consumer readiness. We are also talking about regulation readiness at some degree. And we hope to together see more and more startups, SMEs start to be the players in the market. So together we can probably shape the future policy together. So thank you very much.